Hey, Bobby Manning here. Welcome to the Garden Report. Noah Dalzell alongside after a Celtics 117-116 loss to the Hawks that was their ugliest of this season by far. Game-winning putback given up to Onyeka Okongwu before their 20th turnover of the year came on an attempt to get Jason Tatum. Mid-range, high post look out on the baseline that just shot past them and out of bounds. The Celtics only turned it over 20 times once last year. And also give up 20 offensive rebounds to the Hawks in this game. So all in all, Joe Mazzulla saying that the Celtics got outplayed here.
They played harder and they played more physical than we did, and they got 20 offensive rebounds and forced us into 20 turnovers. So you let a team outshoot you by the shot margin like that, and you're not going to win. Yeah.
Can you attribute to kind of just the carelessness with the ball?
Their physicality, their ball pressure, threw a couple of passes on our heels. Their long, active hands, but just didn't. Some of the reads were there. We just didn't connect on the passes. But it's a credit to their physicality and their ball pressure.
How do you feel about the defense overall this year?
We're third in actual, third in expected.
Hard to put any other way than that.
Yeah, I mean, I think this was one of those just like effort losses, and you don't get very many of them covering this team over the last few years, but that's kind of what this was. This was, they weren't playing as hard, they weren't as focused on the details, and you have to imagine that a part of it is the human nature of just this team being, you're looking at this roster and they're down some of their best players. You're already a much better team on paper than them, and it happens sometimes. And we've seen it over the years, the classic thing that happens when, stars are out. This Hawks team looked anemic on paper. And we talked to Quinn Snyder pregame, and he was like, we're going to figure out a way to compete, but I don't really know how yet. It was kind of the energy. And so, yeah, this was a bad loss. And I don't know yet if it's indicative of something larger or if it's just one of those nights like in Charlotte last year. I remember, that was a really bad fall loss that ultimately meant nothing in the grand scheme of things.
The Hawks one's late.
Yeah, there's, we can think right now four easy ones that were just like bad losses that never should have happened. Tonight was that, and you can feel it in the post game when there's like nothing to really talk about, there's nothing to really say. It's just like this was bad.
Yeah, no, and the extended stretch is what they're trying to avoid here, and that's what we're going to look for now off their first awful loss this year. They bounced back from them quickly last year. I don't think they ever lost more than 2 games in a row, and that's what allowed them to have the regular season that they did here. Now you're questioning, was it a little bit of an extended stretch where they got away with some efforts against the Nets, against the Bucks even, going down by 17 in that game? You have a 3-game stretch here where the Celtics haven't played up to their standard, and Jaylen Brown pointed to the defense after the game here. Here's what he had to say.
We switch, so we just got to fight. We're a team that likes to be able to switch, but you got to rebound. And you gotta fight some of those bigs. They got a lot of seals tonight. Okongwu and Capella did a good job offensive rebounding and sealing some of our switches, and made us pay for it. And we just gotta fight better. We didn't fight how we normally do tonight.
So Brown said they have to address some things right now. They have to figure some stuff out. They have to move past this quickly, and they'll get a chance to tomorrow against the Nets. So we're going to know pretty soon if this is going to be an extended stretch. But I think back to something Steph Curry said when the Warriors were here. You got asked all about how do you repeat? You guys were the last one to do it. And he was like, you still have that glow to start the year. You're still in that championship hangover mode where you're still great, you're still the best, but then 10 games go by as it has for the Celtics here, and now you're in that middle portion of the season. And it feels a little early for a malaise to set in, but I think of Tatum's defensive performance against the Nets, the overall effort in this one, and going down 16-2 right out of the gate in Milwaukee like they did, and it's hard to point to anything other than malaise or them just getting a little bit bored here.
Yeah, they've certainly looked a little bit bored here, and I also think this hasn't been like the most exciting schedule to begin the year. Not a lot of high-profile matchups. The ones that there were supposed to be, Milwaukee ended up not being quite as the team that we were expecting them to be. Lost the Warriors game, lost the Pacers game. I almost feel like they need to go on a road trip against some really good Western Conference teams, because this stretch this week was so easy on paper, and obviously they're already 0-1 to start the stretch, but they're going to have a couple more games here against teams that they're significantly better than on paper. But it's the NBA, and the better team on paper doesn't always win. And I think Yeah, is this like a championship hangover? Is this like getting bored midseason? Is it just a bad night or a bad couple of nights? I do think that they've gotten away with some bad habits over these last few games, and Al Horford mentioned it the other night. He's like, we've been kind of easing into these games, and that's bad, but he kind of said it with a smile because it's like they still won and they still were winning. You're not smiling after a loss, and I think this is, in a way, maybe a little bit of a wake-up call of like, okay, these bad habits, these slow starts, like, we can't do this anymore. We can't go down 16-2. They weren't down in the first quarter here. They were down maybe a couple of points, but it had the same energy of like they're not focused. They're not themselves right now. And then I looked up and I was like, okay, it's 11-11. But even so, you could feel it was the same feeling that you had these last few games.
It's a good point. You feel it when you actually lose, and they haven't
Yeah.
had that shocking loss yet so far. And there's going to be one that sends them back to the drawing board pretty quickly. And you'll get some more bench guys in there tomorrow. Jason Tatum said after looking hobbled a little bit in parts of this game, coming in questionable, that he's going to be good to go tomorrow. So imagine we'll see him, but of course no Al Horford on the back-to-back against the Nets. Some things to watch for, I think the interior defense, certainly the rebounding, and I don't think the ball control is something that's going to linger here as a problem,
Yeah.
but those are the three things that did them in here tonight. And specifically the post defense, the interior defense is something that through the first 5 games, they were one of the worst teams in the league at, despite, as you mentioned, coming away with wins in many of those. So there's things you can pick at, there's things that you can look at and say, is this going to be a trend here? But we are still pretty early in the schedule. So you said it on the post-game show. Nets, Raptors, who are they playing after that?
I don't even know.
So,
oh, they got the Wizards next week. I know I'm going to be in D.C. So, yeah, there's a couple
Cavs, there's a marquee one for them. So
Yeah, and Cavs, they're the team to beat right now. So that should be a fun one.
Yeah.
But again, I'm not ready to say like this is a championship hangover or they're playing with their food because it's just not. It hasn't. I mean, they're 9-3 still. Like I don't want to overreact here. They're 9-3 and they've had plenty of good things to talk about this season, and we've talked about those things. But if this turns into like if they don't come out and win tomorrow, we can have that conversation because I think this is the kind of loss you have to bounce back from. You have to go to Brooklyn and send a message or whatever you want to call it. Like I expect that that's what's going to happen. But if they come out tomorrow and they're down 16-2 again, I'll finally lean into like maybe these are some things we should be concerned about this team.
Well, look out for that. We'll be in New York tomorrow against the Nets. Celtics playing them for the second time in a week, and they trailed almost the entire
They're a fun
game
team.
here at TD Garden last time that they played on Friday night. So can the Nets repeat that effort? Will the Celtics come back and play with maximum effort and shake off the rest from this game? We'll see. 7:30 tip-off. We'll have post-game coverage. Noah Dalzell, Bobby Manning. Check out Prize Picks. Go over there. Use the code CLNS for a bonus when you play a $5 lineup. Check out Game Time, where if you use the code CLNS, if you're in New York, easy building to get into, Barclays, go check out Game Time for all the best deals leading up to that game tomorrow night. And use code CLNS for $20 off. Terms apply. Again, for Noah Dalzell, I'm Bobby Manning. Celtics lose 117-116 to the Atlanta Hawks and fall to 9-3 this season. This has been the Garden Report.